بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وعلى من تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Today is lesson 34 and it was the 7th of Jumada al-Thani. Dua in the first tashahhud. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam also set the guidance of dua in this tashahhud as well, saying when you sit after every 2 rak'ahs, then say all compliments are due to Allah till the end of the supplication. And then he said, then he should select of the supplications what is most pleasing to him.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. As a continuation of our explanation for the prayer of the Prophet ﷺ from the book of the Shaykh Al-Albani rahmatullahi alayhi, may Allah mercy upon him. That is Sifatu Salat al-Nabi ﷺ ka'annaka tarah, description of the prayer of the Prophet of Allah, just like you see it. And the last thing that we were covering was the benefits regarding the salutation upon the Prophet ﷺ at the end. And now we're continuing for the prayer because we finished now 2 rak'ah, we're going to the 3rd and the 4th. So he says now in that tashahhud, that is, the tashahhud is not like some people think is just at-tahiyyatu lillah, without the as-salat Ibrahimiyya, which is Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, or without the dua, which is that you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the du'as that we're going to as well see, those du'as which are Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min adhab al-qabr wa adhab jahannam, like that. All of this is to be said even in the 2 rak'ah, meaning if you have a salah which has got 2 times of tashahhud, whether it's in the 2nd and the 4th, or the 2nd and the 3rd. So you have the first tashahhud and the 2nd tashahhud are to be the same in terms of salah, tashahhud and dua. Salah Ibrahimiyya, which is Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, or the tashahhud tahiyyatu lillah, or the dua which is that you say after the salah. Now, going now to the 3rd and the 4th rak'ah, this is the title that we're going to be discussing as well. Now,
Standing up for the 3rd and then the 4th rak'ah. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam would get up for the 3rd rak'ah with takbir, and he ordered the one who prayed badly to do so, then do that in every rak'ah as before. When he sallallahu alayhi wasallam stood from the sitting position, he would say takbir and then stand up. And he sallallahu alayhi wasallam would raise his hands with this takbir sometimes.
right. So we have established now, up to now, that the raising of the hands are to be all the time in the 3 position. What does that? Takbirat ihram, going for the ruku' and up for the ruku'. Apart from that, all of the other ones is sometimes. This one after the 3rd rak'ah is sometimes as well they would do it, but it is more time than from the 2nd to the 3rd, it is more than, for example, doing it between the 2 sajda. We said between the 2 sajda, very rare because the Prophet ﷺ hadn't been narrated from him that he's to do it between the 2 sajda, or for example when he's going down from the upright position to the sujood, that is, he would suppose, the Prophet of Allah, he would do it sometimes. How does he get up to the 3rd rak'ah? It was not established in a clear hadith. How it was established to go to the 3rd rak'ah? There was nothing there to be established from the proofs, the Prophet ﷺ, how he used to do, and what, from the Prophet of Allah. But we do have, that is from hadith Abdullah ibn Umar, from his athar himself. That is, he's been seen whenever he goes from the 2 rak'ah up to the 3rd, he would depend upon his hand. He would depend upon his hand. And even some people who are seeing Abdullah ibn Umar doing this, they said, is it because he's got some elder age, he's old, for example? They said, no, he does it because it's a sunnah. He does it because he wants to do it. It's not because he's old. And that is from Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma. And the Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, he had said that when you get up from the 2nd rak'ah, from the tashahhud to the 3rd rak'ah, is to depend upon the hands. يَعْتَمِدُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ. So he's to do depending upon. And the hadith that he depended upon is Hadith ibn al-Huwayrith. Hadith ibn al-Huwayrith it doesn't have the dependence upon it. It doesn't have that he depended upon it, but Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah, he has made qiyas, analogy, that it's just like he had stood up from the first to the second, then from the second to the third is to be the same. That is his qiyas rahmatullah alayhi. But if we have strengthened that with the Abdullah ibn Umar, and also saying that there is supposed to be no difference between the first to the second, second to the third, third to the fourth, that's the asl, al-origin. This is supposed to be the default, and other than that has to be a hadith to say otherwise. So the default is to depend upon the hands. The depending upon the hands, as I said, it hasn't been mentioned from the Prophet ﷺ from the second to the third, but it's been mentioned from the third to the fourth, mentioned from the first to the second, which is al-ajn, which is the making like the dough, which is the two fists into the hand, and this is closer to the, as Imam Nawawi had said, closer to the humbleness, and also more relaxing to the person when he gets up, instead of going from his knees and without helping himself with his hands. He might have a back problem, so, and also he might have a knee problem. So the best thing is to put the hands and make the ajn, and that's what the Prophet used to do with from the first to the second, from the third to the fourth. So that is because of that, we say the default situation from the second to the third is to be the same. That is, to sit after the second sajda until every bone of your backside is to be straight. حَتَّى يَرْجِعَ كُلُّ عَظْمٍ إِلَى مَوْضِعِهِ, till all your backbones to be straight. That is to make sure that you're going to lift up to the third rak'ah. So sit, and that is the sit. It is the sitting of istiraha if it's between the first to the second, between the third to the fourth. But here there's no istiraha between the second to the third, it is the tashahhud. So you sit because you be tashahhudin, and then you stand up by making this timad, which is the fist. And this is the fist. The fist was not like this, and this is not even vertical. It's to be horizontal, because this is why we do the ajin like that. We don't do like that. So this is the fist. You push your knees upwards, and then after that you take off your hands and you stand up in a very relaxing way. Right. He says that he's to raise up his hands with the takbir, we said, and the raising up of the hands is exactly as we have described before, with before or after. So you say Allahu Akbar, or like this, and Allahu Akbar, or together Allahu Akbar. All of that is allowed. Go ahead.
When he wanted to stand up for the fourth rak'ah, he would say, Allah is the greatest. And he ordered...
He says Allahu Akbar, not like Allah the greatest, meaning Allah. He would say Allahu Akbar, meaning Allah the greatest. Now.
And he ordered the one who prayed badly likewise as before, and he sallallahu alayhi wasallam would raise...
So this is now you're talking about from the third to the what? To the fourth. Before you were talking about from what? From the second to the third. So from now, you've just been started from the third to the fourth. Now.
When he wanted to stand up for the fourth rak'ah, he would say, Allahu Akbar. And he ordered the one who prayed badly likewise as before, and he sallallahu alayhi wasallam would raise his hands with this takbir sometimes. He would sit up straight on his left foot at ease until every bone returned to its proper place.
Meaning he makes the iftirash, to sit, listen. So from the third to the fourth now. That is, he would sit, when he sits from the second sajda, he would make iftirash, not iq'a. Iftirash, which is to sit on the left foot, just like you make in tashahhud. And that is jalsat al-istiraha. Until every bone, that means every bone of your back, goes to its position. Every bone of your back, it will be, the spine line will be straight. Then after that, he will go mu'tamidan al-ard, depending upon the earth. Read that again, please.
He would sit up straight on his left foot at ease until every bone returned to its proper place. Then stand up, supporting himself on the ground, and he would clench his fists. There's a footnote.
Go on.
literally as one who kneads a dough, supporting himself with his hands when standing up. And there's a footnote on that as well.
Go on.
Halbi in Gharib al-Hadith, its meaning is found in Bukhari and Abu Dawood. As for the Hadith, he forbade that a man should support himself with his hand when getting up during prayer. It is a munkar and not authentic, as I have explained in Silsila al-Hadith al-Da'ifa.
So this is now to tell us that the ones who say that you should not depend upon the ground of the earth, based upon a hadith which is not authentic, that is the Prophet of Allah prohibited the person to depend upon his hands when he gets up from the prayer. That hadith is munkar, and the Shaykh Al-Albani, he gives a reference to his silsila. Now,
He would recite Al-Fatiha in both these rak'ahs, and he ordered the one who prayed badly to do that. In Dhuhr prayer, he would sometimes add a few ayat to this, as has been explained under recitation in Dhuhr prayer.
right, so he would, in the third and the fourth, he would add some ayat like to them, and we're not really specifying only the dhuhr, any two rak'ah, any prayer which has got more than two rak'ah. You could recite Fatiha and as well a surah after that, even the third and the fourth. And we said regarding the dhuhr, I don't know if you remember dhuhr or not, you've forgotten already. Okay, I'm going to ask, let me just see his memory of yours. Normally it is the case. Ya Shakil, the first rak'ah, can you give me the scenario with the second rak'ah of the dhuhr? Can you tell me what is the Prophet ﷺ regarding the first and the second would do? Okay, so the first one will be longer than the second. Okay? Another scenario? Count, that's one. Another scenario. Okay, the first two will be longer than the two, but I'm asking about the first and the second. You got away from that question. Okay, so the first two will be longer than the second, the third and the fourth. I want now, Irfan. The scenario for the first and the second.
The first is longer because of the device.
We said that, first and longer, that's the first one. We want another scenario. Yes?
And the first is shorter than the second.
No, the first is not shorter than the second. Another scenario? Okay, the first equal to the second. We said that. Prophet of Allah, he used to recite 30 ayahs into the first two rak'ah. So the first two rak'ah, 1 and 2 equal to each other. And even sometimes they make it really long. How much long? Anybody? Huh? Huh? I'm not talking about minutes. I mean, like, which always is the hadith. Yeah? No. This is a hadith. It's not. There's a hadith which tells us how long. Hadith Abi Sa'id al-Khudri. Huh? He used to go to defecate. He used to go to the Baqiyah and relieve himself, and go to the house, make wudu, and come back to the masjid and still the Prophet of Allah in the first rak'ah. I have counted that if I want to do this, it will be round about, that's the first rak'ah, between 15 to 20 minutes. I've counted the first rak'ah. If you're going to go to the Baqiyah and do a quick one, and then go to the house, make wudu, and that house is stuck to the house, to the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, and come to the masjid, that's between 15 to 20 minutes. That's a quick one, because the Baqiyah is a walk, basically. You know the Baqiyah, which is the cemetery at the moment. Okay, the fresh memory. Who was with me here in class? I'm going to ask. You were in the class. In terms of Dhuhr prayer compared with the Asr prayer. You tell me the Sunnah of the Prophet of Allah. Was the Asr prayer as the Dhuhr prayer, or is it shorter than in totality? What do you think? Huh? Shorter. How much shorter? Anybody will tell me? Roughly. Half. Half of the time. So Asr is normally half of it. Why does the Imam, they don't do half of the Dhuhr? Because the Dhuhr is very short. To make half of it, that will be super super fast. The Dhuhr is already short. The Dhuhr is about maybe 8 minutes. So they then make it hassle 4 minutes, and people will complain. But if he makes it, for example, 12 minutes, he would be able to make it what? Almost 6 minutes. I'm not here as a time the Imam. You look at the clock. This is roughly, all of it roughly. That the person would feel that it is. But that's how the companions used to want to convey to us exactly how the Prophet used to pray. Right? Fatiha on the third and the fourth. He commanded the one who was done wrongly to do the prayer. That means it is compulsory. And because of the hadith, there's no Fatiha, there's no prayer for the person who does not recite the Fatiha. We say that the Fatiha, not just for the first rak'ah, for the first and the second, the third and the fourth. Each unit in its own. Now, Al-Qunut.
Qunut in the 5 prayers because of a calamity. When he ﷺ wanted to supplicate against someone or supplicate for someone, he would perform Qunut. There's a footnote. Qunut carries several meanings. For example, humility, devotion. What is meant here is the special supplication while standing during the prayer. So the Prophet ﷺ would perform Qunut in the last rak'ah after ruku', after having said, Sami Allahu liman hamida.
Okay, stop. Al-Qunut means dua. And what is intended here, the dua in the salah. That's what intended here. In a specific place from the prayer. In the nawazil, it's all the time after ruku'. There is no such thing, qunut nawazil, before ruku'. What is nawazil? Nawazil, that is a crisis. Something had happened to the ummah and it's fresh. And the imam of the masjid, whether he is the imam of the masjid, meaning the masjid of the whole country, which we call it the masjid of the sultan, the head, or they call it, for example, the center masjid, or every masjid. It doesn't matter. Each masjid has as well an imam, and he can do it, because there's a difference among the scholars. Is it just one masjid or not? No, all the masajid. Now, a crisis, not for individual, a crisis that will touch the whole ummah. Whether it's in the country itself, or whether it is outside for the Muslims, because the Muslims are to be one body. He says to call against someone, we know that, but as well for someone. Like, for example, that if there is a fresh fight between us and the disbelievers, so the person who's making dua, while he's making dua, he would call upon those who are disbelievers to be destroyed, because they're fighting the Muslims, and for the Muslims to be victorious. So he's calling for someone. So you understand now what is for someone. And also, if it's a commander that is being put by the leaders, and is well known, he would say, Allahumma ansar, for example, Muhammad, Allahumma ansar Abdullah, who is the Allahumma ansar Abdullah, who is the commander of such and such army. Allahumma ansarhu, Allahumma. So that is calling for someone. But it is not, for example, to call for a particular individual that is linked to the Imam. It's not that. So the Imam starts saying, oh Lord, give my son the certificate of the embassy, of the university, whatever. It's not really supposed to be that. Now, when I said fresh, that means if it's something that happened a long time, and a person, now Imam is going to revive for the, oh Lord, return Andalusia, Spain. This is 700 years ago now. Oh Lord, that's not a crisis now, that's finished. Oh Lord, destroy the Jews who take in Palestine. That's not a nazila. This is something finished already. Talking about something fresh. So it has to be fresh, not somebody come now to talk about something that happened a long time ago. It is not really something which is the current situation. And he says here in the last rak'ah, it means it cannot be in the first or the second. The last rak'ah, whether the prayer is silent or the prayer is audible. Prophet of Allah used to make his qunut in the 5 prayer prayers, but most of the time in the Fajr and the Maghrib. Fajr and the Maghrib. Fajr and the Maghrib. Indicating the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. Beginning of the day, the beginning of the night. Beginning of the day, beginning of the night. But in all the prayers, there's no specification for qunut and nawazil. So that means you do it accordingly. And sometimes the Maghrib and the Fajr will have more people. And it says here, after the ruku'. It has to be after the ruku'. It cannot be before the ruku' in any time. Then he says here, after he says, سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَ. So you say after the ruku', سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَ. اللهم ربنا لك الحمد وربنا لك الحمد ربنا ولك الحمد حمدا كثيرا طيبا. You could add all of these supplications, but then after that, this is all of it to be silent, not loud. When you start making the dua, which is to call upon someone, then you start making the dua audibly. And he says here, the following sentence, وَكَانَ يَجْهَرْ بِدُعَاء. He used to make his dua loud. And that's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, to make it loud. Because you want the people to know what you are making dua, and you want as well the people to say Ameen upon your dua. So, وَكَانَ يَجْهَرْ بِدُعَاءِ. Now, this dua, we're going to see it, is not the dua which is the qunut. And it is not, as I said, specified to a particular prayer. Why are we saying this? Because the Shafi'iyya, where they are in Bilad al-Sham, most of them, they make this dua of qunut in Fajr prayer. And they keep doing it on the Fajr. And we're going to discuss that when we come to the witr. Inshallah, we're going to discuss that in detail. So let's go and first after that, the sentence you said, you can yajhar bi-du'a.
He would supplicate loudly, raise his hands. Let's footnote for that.
Go on.
Ahmad and Tabarani with a Sahih Sanad. To raise the hands in qunut is the madhab of Ahmad and also Ishaq ibn Rahawayh. Marwazi Masail, page 23. As for wiping the face with the hands, it is not reported in this position and is thus an innovation bid'ah. As for outside of prayer, it is not authentically reported. All that has been transmitted in this regard is either weak or very weak, as I have shown in Da'if Abi Dawood and Silsila Ahadith As-Sahiha 597. This is why Izz bin Abdul Salam said in one of his fatwas, only an ignorant person does it.
So you could really...
Says see Appendix 8.
No, you need to read that bit. Appendix 8. It's not from the book. Right. Al-Izz bin Abdul Salam, great scholar in Egypt. He says that this raising up of the hands, wiping off the face, is from the thing that the ignorant people would do. What is wiping off the face? Whether it's in the prayer or outside the prayer. In the prayer would be even more of a bid'ah. When the Imam is finished his dua, the Imam himself, on the qunut, he would wipe his face. Like that. And the people would do the same thing. So wiping that face, we don't have a narration which is authentic. And Izz bin Abdul Salam, he says that a person who is ignorant would do it. No. The person who is doing it is ignorant, but yet he is learned. He could be the Imam of the Masjid. He could be the Sheikh. He could be the Allama. He could be the Mufti, ya akhi. And he's doing it. So why is he doing it? It's not because he's ignorant. It's because of the taqleed, which is blind following, without any caring for the proof. But some, I have to as well be just here, that would think that the hadith which is being narrated regarding this is to be authentic. So please, when you see somebody doing like this, don't take the nick, because he will not listen to you. You have to say to him, this is not really from the authentic hadith, because as soon as you mention this, he might say to you that you are Wahhabi. And don't be annoyed with that, because that's what they're being taught. So some of them, they go even, they don't know what is wiping the face, so they will do like this, and then sometimes they kiss their thumbs, and then they will touch their eyes. That's an addition which is not in the hadith anyway. Some even, they might wash their face like that. It's not just wiping. So because when you are jahil, ignorant, there is no limit of where you're going to stop and where you're going to add. So how can I raise up the hands now? Raising up the hands, the normal way, is like that. Now, there is no, like that for the sisters as well, listening, is actually your hands are almost in parallel to your shoulders, and you're putting your hands upwards. This is raising up the hands when you are making a supplication, or when you're making the qunut of the nazila, or the qunut of the witr. You're making the hands like that. There is no such thing that the hands to be like this. That is called ittihad. It is not ittihad. And that is to be done by the Imam. If he's, for example, in a point where he is in need of more dua, or for istisqa, or for istisqa dua. And in the istisqa, there is one which is different from the other, raising of the hands, where the person would turn his hand the other way around. Just like that. So instead of doing with his palm upwards, with the back of his hands would be upwards. In the istisqa, seeking for the rain. It's like we're asking Allah to change the situation from being, that is, famine, from being no rain to something which is rain. So we're changing our hand like that. That's in the istisqa, the normal one. So the ones which we will have to talk about it is the ones who are making the dua in a way which is, people will find it not really right. Like, for example, a person doing like this. You see that? What is this, Cleopatra or something? I mean, doing like this. I said, dua, ya akhi. I said, no dua. Person, you are making fun. I said, dua. So that's not a dua. And some people say dua like this. He's covering his face. So the dua is not that. The dua is actually opening the palms and to Allah. I'm not going to say how close and how far. That's just normal. There's no such thing. And if you have heard about any person, regardless who he is, that is the way to do it in 3 ways, or there's no proof for that. Okay, there's no proof. So this is the normal dua. Okay, so normal dua. Doesn't matter like that. Doesn't matter. But there is no such thing like this. There's no such thing like that. And this is for the Imam. Some people do not love this. They do like this. They do like this. Bring it. Look at the TV when they are in the haram. Yeah, that's why like that. And some people, even they are, I'm not ignorant, even I would say daring or impolite, call it like this. What's this? None of you seen them? Yeah. No, it's like he's like fighting. What's this? I know that the person, no problem to cry. Alhamdulillah. As long as you're not putting an axe, basically. He says, وَيُؤَمِّنُ مَنْ خَلْفَهُ. First people who says behind him, Ameen. So whenever they hear say, Oh Allah, give victory to Muslim. Ameen. Oh Allah. Right. Ameen. يُؤَمِّنُ مَنْ خَلْفَهُ. Go ahead.
Regarding raising the hands in the appendix at the back of the book.
Go ahead. But listen from the translator from the book.
think the translator added in from Irwa.
Al-Irwa, I'm putting a note from the Irwa, 159 to 164. Is that right?
Says 17.
Maybe a different book version. Go on. Go, read.
Page 111, Appendix 8. The weakness of the ahadith mentioning wiping the face with the hands after dua, supplication. From Irwa al-Ghalil 2/178 to 182 by Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah. Number 1. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he raised his hands in dua, he would not put them down until he had wiped his face with them. This hadith is da'if.
I'll tell you what, because all of it to do with the refutation of the hadith. So we will skip that, come back to the book. This is more of a, you could say, research into the hadith. So we'll leave that inshallah. Now, so we say all the hadith regarding wiping of the face is got to be what? No, further.
And those behind him would say Ameen.
No.
He was known to perform qunut in all 5 prayers, although he would only perform qunut in them when he supplicated for a people or supplicated against a people.
People, whether they are in totality, like mudar, alayka bil mudar wa bil ahyan, so he would, the whole tribe, or names, individual, people, individual. Like when the Prophet ﷺ, he called upon those people, not in the prayer, but he called upon them when they were in Mecca before the phase of the Medina. And the Prophet ﷺ was prostrating, and those people from the Quraysh criminals, they were taking the mick of the Prophet ﷺ. They're bullying the Messenger of Allah. They're scorning it. So one of them, he said, that is Abu Jahl, who's amongst you can go and put that placenta on top of him? So they brought the placenta of the camel, which is huge in terms of weight, and they put it on the back of the Prophet of Allah, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is watching. He said, I was a shepherd, I can't have any power to defend the Messenger of Allah. And the Prophet of Allah is unable to lift his back. So the Prophet ﷺ, he stayed like this until Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he sent for Fatima. She was very young, hadn't reached the 10 years old yet. She came, she helped her father by removing the placenta, and she started yelling at them, and he said to them, how dare you? But because she's a girl, they did not really harm her. And the Prophet of Allah, as soon as he lifted up his head, he called upon those 7 people. One of them is Safwan ibn Umayyah, and one of them is the one Allah said, فَانْبَعَثَ أَشْقَاهَا, which is the one, Al-Walid ibn Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayyid, Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayyid, not the Walid, this is a companion. Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayyid. He is the one who put the placenta. Allah said, by Allah, I saw that those 7 whom the Prophet of Allah called against him, killed in the battle of Badr. Not only that, they've been so much humiliated, they've been thrown in the well of the Qalib. The Prophet of Allah even spoke to them after they were dead. Umar al-Khattab said, Messenger of Allah, talking to somebody who's dead. He said, they are more able to hear me than you. So those are, as individual, Prophet of Allah had called upon them. Now here, as an example of the Prophet of Allah is making a supplication for someone and against someone. Go ahead.
For example, he once said, "O Allah, rescue Al-Walid ibn Al-Walid."
That's for someone.
And Salama ibn Hisham.
That's for someone.
And Ayyash ibn Abi Rabi'ah.
All of those 3, they've been saved. Then Allah's Messenger had said, this is now against. Go ahead.
O Allah, harden your penalty on the tribe of Mudar, and cause for it years of famine at the years of Yusuf.
Yusuf alayhi salam, he had years of famine. Very big famine. The people couldn't really eat anything except for what they have saved for themselves. Now,
O Allah, curse Lahyan and Ru'ayb. Ri'l,
وذكوان
and Husayya,
and عصي.
who disobeyed Allah and His Messenger.
Right. عصية عصت الله عصت الله ورسوله. طيب. Go ahead.
Then he would say, Allah is the Allahu Akbar, when he had finished qunut and prostrate.
Right. So this qunut is the Prophet of Allah, he had made it a number of times. One time he made a qunut, the Prophet ﷺ, not in a prayer, which is outside the prayer, against people whom they went become Muslim later on. Those are Abu Sufyan, one of them. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He had sent to him, لَيْسَ لَكَ مِنَ الْأَمْرِ شَيْءٍ. And that is the verse, we have explained it in the book of Kitab al-Tawheed. Yes? And those people who are being expelled from the mercy by the Prophet of Allah, Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, it is not for you, Messenger, to decide their fate, whether they're going to be their fate, whether they're going to be outside the mercy of Allah or not. And this happened in the Battle of Uhud. When the Prophet of Allah was thrown into the ditch and he was cut, and his helmet, some of the chains of it went in his cheeks. He said, كَيْفَ يُفْلِحُ قَوْمٌ شَجُّوا نَبِيَّهُمْ. How can people be successful if they have cut or made a cut in the body of their Prophet? That's when Allah Azza wa Jal revealed. So Allah Azza wa Jal revealed this verse for two occasions. When Prophet of Allah said those words, how can these people be successful? That means they're going to be doomed for kuffar. And also when he supplicated against those individuals, لَيْسَ لَكَ مِنَ الْأَمْرِ شَيْءٍ. It is not for you, Prophet of Allah, to decide the fate of those people. It is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِمَّا يَتُوبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might have accepted their repentance. And all of those who have supplicated against them, the Prophet of Allah, they have embraced Islam. Prophet of Allah, he had made a supplication against those mentioned there, لحيان ورعل وذكوان وعصية or وعصية, because what happened regarding the recitals. Anas radiallahu anhu, he says that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was called by those tribes to send them people to call them to Islam. Before this thing had happened, just a month before, Prophet of Allah already had just finished from the Battle of Uhud. From the Battle of Uhud, 70 companions were lost. One of them is Abu Hamza ibn al-Muttalib. One of them is Mus'ab ibn Umayr. Then some tribes, Al-Qara, well-known tribe, they sent for the Prophet of Allah to send them recited or people to teach them Islam. Prophet of Allah, he would not hesitate regarding the da'wah to send people to go and call for Islam, even though that is 70 people already been killed. Now remember that after the Battle of Uhud, the tribes or the Arabs around the Medina, they started daring themselves onto the Prophet. They want now, you could see there's a feast there, let's go and dig in. He sent for them 10 companions led by Asim ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu. Along with him, there was Zayd ibn Dathina and Abdullah ibn Tariq. May Allah be pleased with them. When those people, that is Adl and Al-Qara, both got 200 fighters, and they surrounded them. And they said to them, descend down, because they went to a mountain to save themselves. So Asim ibn Thabit, he said, verily, I'm not going to put myself into the custody of a kafir, because I know that they're going to be what? Idolaters, they're going to be deceiving and betraying. Most of the Muslims surrendered, except for, so most of the Muslims were being killed, except for those following 3. Asim ibn Thabit, Zayd ibn Dathina, no, except for 4, Khubayb ibn Adi, and Abdullah ibn Tariq. They did not submit. And Asim ibn Thabit, he had made a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Lord, just like I am protecting your religion, protect my flesh. And that dua was straight away fulfilled, because one of the kuffar in Mecca wanted the head of Asim, she was a lady, because he had killed in the Battle of Badr her relatives, her father. She wanted to take his skull and put wine into it and drink from it. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not allow those kuffar to come and take or approach the body of Asim and mutilate him and take his skull. Because he sent to them a big hornets, the hornets, the big sort of thing that really sting, and protected the flesh of Asim. They couldn't get closer to him. When they went down, when Asim ibn Thabit was killed, the three that is left, Zayd ibn Dathina, Abdullah ibn Tariq and Khubayb ibn Adi, they surrendered. They said to them, come down and we will not touch you. As soon as they came down, they put the ropes into them, and that is when Abdullah ibn Tariq said, this is the first brink or the first spark of betrayal or treachery. They betrayed us. They started pulling them and took them as slaves. And they wanted, of course, to either sell them or kill them. While these dragging Abdullah ibn Tariq, he didn't want to go. They killed Abdullah ibn Tariq. Left now Zayd ibn Dathina radiallahu anhu and Khubayb. Zayd ibn Dathina was purchased by the family of Safwan because they want to kill him because of what he had done in the Battle of Badr. And Khubayb, he was being purchased as well by the other tribes of Quraysh. They wanted to kill him because of he had killed as well some of their relatives in the Battle of Badr. Both of them, they had great stories. As for Khubayb ibn Adi, he was sort of tied up, and while he was there for the following day to be killed, and they would kill him in the Sahab Haram, in front of the Haram, Mecca, he had asked for a razor to shave his pubic hair. He was being given the razor, and while he was there, the son of the household lady rolled, and he was in the hands of Khubayb while he had the razor. The woman, she's looking at Khubayb, and Khubayb said, do you think I'm going to betray? Do you think I'm going to harm the baby? No. So he left the baby and he wanted to continue with his razor to use it. She said, that lady, Wallahi, I have seen Khubayb eating from a bunch of grape where there is not a single grape tree in the whole of Mecca. So that is as well a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on the following day, when they took him to kill him, he said, can I pray 2 rak'ah? He's the first person to make the sunnah, which is praying 2 rak'ah before being killed. So he prayed 2 rak'ah. They asked him, do you want anything else? He said, well, had it been that you're going to think that I'm scared, I would have asked to pray again. But get on with it. So they killed him. Khubayb ibn Adi, radiallahu anhu wa ardah. Zayd ibn Dathina, he was taken to the Haram to be killed. And Abu Sufyan radiallahu anhu, before he embraced Islam, he said to him, don't you want now or wish that Muhammad is in your place and you are in Medina enjoying yourself? He said, Wallahi, I would not want the Prophet of Allah to be in Medina being pricked by a thorn, not to be in Mecca and being killed, to be pricked by a thorn. That is when Abu Sufyan, he said, I've never seen anyone who would love anyone more than the companions of Muhammad love Muhammad. That's a testimony from a person who was a kafir before he embraced Islam. No one. He had seen lots of people loving some people, but he would never see Abu Sufyan. People like the companions. And he was one of the companions. So later on he would love the Prophet of Allah more than anybody else as well. Radiallahu anhu. Those are the two stories just to mention for you. Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in this he had made a supplication against al-adl wal-qara. In the same month, Hudayl, Walihyan, Wari'i, they've asked the Prophet of Allah for more people to go for da'wah, these different tribes. And the Prophet of Allah did not hesitate, even though up to now he had lost what? How many? 80, 17 Uhud and 10. He sent them the reciter, Al-Qur'an, 70 reciters. What is the story of these reciters? The story of these reciters is that those people, they used to recite most of the night. They are Huffaz, 70 Qur'an. And in the Fajr prayer, some of them, they would go and fish, bring water and pieces of wood and sticks from the forest which is next to Medina. You don't call it a forest, just some trees there. Al-Ghurabaa, they call it. They would take that and they go and sell it in the market, bring the money of it, and buy food for whom? Ahl al-Sufa. The poor people are in the masjid. The ones who are able to purchase, they will go on together, him and his friends, from the Qur'an, and purchase a sheep, and he will hang it into that place where for the Sufa, to eat from the meat as well. So they're Qur'an, plus they are what? Generous, in charity. So if the ones who haven't got money, they go and buy things and sell things for the sake of providing for the poor people of the hut. And the ones who are capable, got money, they get together and buy a sheep and get it as well for the fuqara. Prophet of Allah, he sent those 70 Qur'an. Those 70 Qur'an, as soon as they went, they were betrayed. And they were killed, all of them. Prophet of Allah, he'd never been so saddened. And this is called Ma'sat Bi'r Ma'una. They killed them in Ma'una. The other one, Ma'sat al-Raji'. They went to a place called al-Raji' and they were killed. So Ma'sat al-Raji' or Ma'sat Bi'r Ma'una. In 1 month, after the Battle of Uhud, the year 3rd after Hijrah, in 1 month, that is 150 people were killed. 70 plus 10 plus 70. Prophet was so saddened about them that he kept for a month calling against these people. Allah alayka bimin, Allahumma al'an, Allahumma al'an, Allahumma al'an, all of them. And the companion saying, Ameen. Right, so now we're coming now to the qunut of the witr. What is the difference between qunut al-witr or qunut al-witr? Qunut al-witr is a qunut in a salah which is not obligatory. The only Imam who says the witr is obligatory is Imam Abu Hanifa. Rahmatullah. But some of even his students who were really so just, they did not support Imam Abu Hanifa on his verdict to be that is obligatory. Al-witr is not obligatory. Imam Abu Hanifa is obligatory. The qunut is to be done in which prayers? The nawazil? In obligatory prayers. So remember that, obligatory prayers. But the qunut al-witr is in the voluntary prayer. There is no voluntary prayer. You make qunut in it, except for the witr. So you're not allowed, for example, 2 rak'ah sunnah, dhuhr, 2 sunnah asr, or 2 sunnah nafila, you're going to make dua of qunut. That's not from the sunnah. So either in the qunut, which is qunut al-nawazil, and this is in general, not nafila for yourself, this is the nawazil, the imam. And this is to revive the sunnah which hasn't revived. In this much, alhamdulillah, there is. But some of them, they don't really understand what is going on. You go there, there's nothing happening. There's nobody making dua. So this is qunut al-nawazil for the whole of the masjid. And that is in the obligatory prayer. And it is to be after the ruku'. And it's to be in the last rak'ah. And it's to be after Sami Allahu liman hamida. And it is to be loud. And it's not to be designated to any prayer. This is all the 5 daily prayers. Prophet Allah, yes, he used to do it lots of times in the Fajr and the Maghrib. It doesn't mean it has to be in the Fajr and the Maghrib. So you do it, and this is for a fresh crisis. This one, witr, is sometimes, but this is a voluntary prayer. And it is to be done before and after. Before the ruku' is the norm, but we could do it after the ruku'. And sometimes Whereas the qunut al-nawazil, if there is a crisis, then it is better to go and keep what? Doing it. Dhuhr, al-Asr, al-Maghrib, al-Isha. Continuously. A fresh crisis. Like there is a raid from the kuffar. You keep in dua. Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. That's the nazil. For the witr, sometimes. We don't hear the Prophet of Allah used to do it all the time. That's not right. It would have been said to us that every time you make witr, that's not from the sunnah. It is not from the sunnah to make dua, qunut, witr every time you witr. It is sometimes. That means lots of times he would not do it. And that is why we have lots of ahadith where we had heard Prophet of Allah, he had prayed. Allah Masud prayed with him. The Imam prayed with him. She mentioned his prayers all during the night. None of them had mentioned the qunut in there. The qunut, we have seen it in Ramadan. Even 3 nights the Prophet ﷺ, he had prayed. 3 nights, none of them mentioned what? Qunut. 25th, 27th, 23rd, 25th, 27th. The 29th did not come out, the Prophet. These are the only 3 nights he prayed in Ramadan. Taraweeh. Those are the 3 nights, none of them has got qunut. But we have a hadith of Hussein that the Prophet ﷺ, he had taught me the qunut, as we can see it. He taught me the qunut, what to say in the qunut. So, Prophet of Allah would not make qunut all the time. So that some people do the qunut that's not from the sunnah. Fadal.
Qunut in the witr prayer. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to perform qunut in the odd rak'ah of the witr prayer sometimes.
Odd rak'ah of the witr. Witr, because it is from 1 to 13. So the last one, which is 1, it could be 1 you're doing. That's the one you're doing it. And he would do it before the ruku'. Go ahead. Give me the note or number sometimes.
We have said sometimes because the companions who narrated the witr prayer did not mention the qunut in it, whereas had the Prophet ﷺ done so always, they would have all mentioned it. However, Ubay ibn Ka'ab alone narrated the qunut in witr, so this shows that he used to do it sometimes. Hence, this is evidence that qunut in witr is not obligatory, wajib. And this is the opinion of the majority of the scholars. For this reason, the researching Hanafi scholar Ibn al-Humam recognized in Fath al-Qadir that the view of it being obligatory is feeble and not substantiated by evidence. This shows his fairness and lack of party spirit, for this view which he has supported is contrary to his madhab.
This is the footnote of the Al-Hasan. He told the Hasan. So there's a footnote for number 8, yes. And he would make it before the ruku'. Go ahead. It says here, and Nasa'i had added.
And he sallallahu alaihi wasallam would make it before the ruku'. And footnote 12, Ibn Abi Shayba, Abu Dawud, Nasa'i.
Just and Nasa'i, tanbih, it's like a note.
And
Nasa'i had added in the last of the qunut.
Nasa'i adds, at the end of the qunut, وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ الْأُمِّي, may Allah send prayers on the unlettered Prophet, related with a weak isnad. Among those who declared it da'if are Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani and Zulqani. Therefore, we have not included it in our system of combining acceptable narrations. Izz ibn Abdus Salam,
We said in his fatawa, go on.
to send prayers on the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in qunut is not authentic, nor is it fitting to add to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayer in any way. This view of his shows that he did not widen the argument by including the idea of bid'ah hasana, i.e. good innovation, as some of the later scholars are prone to doing.
By the way, you have to listen to the end just to see something that you don't see except in the real scholars. Go ahead.
However, it is proved in the hadith about Ubay bin Ka'ab leading the people during Ramadan.
It's not however, it's not however. Yeah, this however is killed the whole thing. Sorry? It says istadraktu. means I realize my mistake. The Imam Al-Albani, rahmatullah alayhi, he could have taken all of that, he could have just put his opinion, and it is from this, no problem, from the Sunnah, sometimes to say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But he wanted to put what he used to think before. He could have just, the new prince, he could have deleted that. This is well before I was born. Well before birth. He could have just deleted that and just said, the Sunnah is to make sallallahu alayhi wa sallam sometimes. But he put what he used to think. And he used to give fatwa that the sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is a bid'ah. And he says, ثُمَّ اسْتَدْرَكْتُ. Not however. I found and I realized my mistake. So I said, it has been confirmed from the hadith of the Imam of Abu Ubay ibn Ka'b, Imam, he was an Imam, in Qiyam Ramadan, that he used to, go on.
He used to send prayers on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the end of the Qunut. And that was during the reign of Umar radiallahu anhu, transmitted by Ibn Khuzaymah in his Sahih 1097. Similarly, is proved from Abu Halima,
Mu'adh al-Ansari,
who also used to lead them during Umar's rule, transmitted by Ismail al-Qadi and others. So this addition is justified by the practice of the Salaf, and it is thus not fitting to categorically state that this addition is a bid'ah, and Allah knows best.
You see, the Shaykh Al-Albani had said that because this is being said in public. Ubay ibn Ka'b leading in public, if it was a bid'ah, then the companion would have said, this is not right. We never heard it. And because he had said it, and there is no one to oppose him, then we say that the Salaf have done it. Because the Salaf, we are followers of the Salaf, the predecessors. And those companions would never ever compile upon mistake. لا تجتمع أمتي على ضلالة. So Ubay ibn Ka'b, whom Umar al-Khattab appointed to lead the people, had led them. And amongst them, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, and amongst them, Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, and amongst them, all these great companions, Ali ibn Abi Waqqas, and Talha and Zubayr, and all of them. Those are the companions, none of them had objected. That means there is like a consensus here. So you sometimes make salutation upon the Prophet. So, وَصَلِّ اللَّهُمَ عَلَى سَيِّدِنَا Muhammad. You could end with the dua without passing salutation. And from the sunnah, to do this and that. Sometimes you pass, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you make qunut, sometimes you don't. Go ahead. He had taught the Hasan.
He taught Al-Hasan ibn Ali radiallahu anhuma to say after finishing his recitation in Witr,
Allahumma hdini fi man hadayt.
O Allah, guide me among those whom you have guided,
وعافني في من عافيت.
and pardon me among those who you have pardoned,
وتولني في من توليت.
and turn on me in friendship among those on whom you have turned in friendship,
وبارك لي فيما أعطيت.
and bless me in what you have bestowed,
وقني شر ما قضيت.
and save me from the evil of what you have decreed.
So I'm going to repeat that one. وقني شر ما قضيت.
And save me from the evil of what you have decreed.
He did not say وقني واصرف عني. You must have heard this before. وقني واصرف عني. Where is واصرف عني coming from? From your pocket? Take it back to your pocket. Don't add. إذا حدثتكم بحديث فلا تزيدون عليه. If I tell you about a hadith, don't add onto me. Don't add it. Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, stop with it. واصرف عني is equivalent to the people when they say in the prayer, ربنا ولك الحمد والشكر. Where's the shukr coming from? I've heard it or you haven't heard it? Arabs have got it, but have you heard it? Somali, you got it? ربنا ولك الحمد والشكر. Yes, you got it? Yeah. Oh, you are attached to our bid'ah. Pakistani? No? You don't have the shukr. You are well behind. In the bid'ah, of course. Which is good. But we are happy Algerians? المغربيين. المغرب كله. They call it. One person makes a bid'ah and everybody follows. Allah, not a single hadith says was shukr. Not even da'if. Not even da'if. What is it? One person uses a lie and everybody copies the lie. Copyright. Allah mustahab, wa laka alhamdu wa shukr. Where's the coming the shukr? And I learned it when I was a kid. Until I learned the proper one, I started to delete the shukr. It took me time. Because to brainwash myself after being brainwashed, it's not really easy. To delete, to get, wa shukr is not very easy to get rid of it. Wa shukr. Same thing with this. Read. فَإِنَّكَ تَقْضِي وَلَا يُقْضَى عَلَيْكَ.
Indeed, you decree and none can influence you.
I'm going to read it again. فَإِنَّكَ تَقْضِي وَلَا يُقْضَى عَلَيْكَ.
Indeed, you decree and none can influence you.
What do you hear that sometimes from the imams? Sometimes from the imams. No. فَإِنَّكَ تَقْضِي بِالْحَقِّ وَلَا يُقْضَى عَلَيْكَ. يا أخي بالحق, where did it coming from? This فَإِنَّكَ تَقْضِي بِالْحَقِّ is equivalent to something which is called صدق الله العظيم. صدق الله العظيم. Every time a person recites the Quran, he says what? صدق الله العظيم. You know that this is number one, it's an addition from your pocket. I said, pretend it back to your pocket. Number two, it is saying like Allah Azza wa Jal can be not truthful. Because you say Allah is truthful. So does it mean Allah is not truthful? So every time you person says Sadaq Allahu Azim, this is an ayah in the Quran, but it is not to be implemented into one. Every time you say Quran, you say Sadaq Allahu Azim. When you stop a person, you say Hasbuk. Stop. I said in English, stop. Hasbuk. Not Sadaq Allahu Azim. Every time they say, even some other people in their prayer, Alhamdulillah, Waladdaleen, Sadaq Allahu Azim. Even in their prayer, okay, part of their prayer, it's not right. Same thing here, فَإِنَّكَ تَقْضِي بِالْحَقِّ. Verily you ordain, what does it say in the translation there? You ordain or you decree? You decree. What is it, ordain or decree? You decree with haqq. That means sometimes Allah decrees with no haqq. That's what he's saying. All what Allah decrees is always what? Haqq, without you attributing haqq to it. It's haqq. So, وَإِنَّكَ تَقْضِي وَلَا يُقْضَى عَلَيْكَ. So there is the fa here as an addition. فَإِنَّكَ, you could say إِنَّكَ تَقْضِي وَلَا يُقْضَى عَلَيْكَ. Go ahead.
For indeed you decree and none can influence
وَإِنَّهُ لَا يَذِلُّ مَنْ وَالَيْتَ.
And he is not humiliated whom you have befriended.
وَلَا يَعِزُّ مَنْ عَادَيْتَ.
Nor is he honored who is your enemy.
تَبَارَكْتَ رَبَّنَا وَتَعَالَيْتَ.
Blessed are you, O Lord, and exalted.
لَا مَنْجَى مِنْكَ إِلَّا إِلَيْكَ.
There is no place of safety from you except towards you.
Now this is in the singular form. Meaning that the person who's making dua to himself, you're not going to. But you are the leader now for the people. All this ihdini will become what? Ihdina. For us. Afina, tawallana, barik lana, qina. And that's it. So those ones, ihdina, afina, tawallana, barik lana, qina. And that's it. Those are the words you change in because you want to take them to everybody, not to yourself. Because you're leaving. Right. You are now to read the Azzu Man Adayt, this addition, please. You see it? There's a footnote. وَلَا يَعِزُّ مَنْ عَدَيْتَ. Yes? Can you read any footnote after the footnote that you've read the last time? Then you find the number of it and then you will relate.
At the end of the dua, there
Yes.
is number one, which we mentioned, Nasa'i, Ibn Khuzaymah.
No, it's not that. It says this is the ziyada وَلَا يَعِزُّ مَنْ عَدَيْتَ is confirmed in the hadith. And I have done that in the asl, and it is a ziyada, and this is the Nawawi had not declared. You haven't got that? And Imam Nawawi declared that this ziyada is from the scholars. It's not there. Okay. Right. Well, it is not really. If you haven't got it, don't worry about it. So I will just. I would say to you that there are some people, even the scholars, have added things, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayka, and all of that is not from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, stop here inshallah, and next week we'll go to the tashahhud al-akhir. So if you have any questions regarding what we have heard, or something related to the topic, Uncle, please come in. Now.
Regarding the Qunut Nawazil, is there any specific etiquettes like starting with the praising Allah?
Is there any Qunut Nawazil with praising Allah? No. The Qunut Nawazil will start, not Allahumma hdini fi man. If you start Allahumma hdini fi man hadayt or hdina fi man hadayt, it's a bid'ah. This is only for Qunut al-Witr. Qunut al-Nawazil is to start, is, for example, you say, Allahumma aghfir lil mu'mina wal mu'minat. Allahumma taqabbal minna Ramadan. Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna. Qunut al-Nawazil, sorry? Nawazil. For example, you say, Allahumma alayka bihaula. Allahumma ansur al-mujahidin al-mujahidat. Allahumma ansur al-muslimin wal-muslimat. Allahumma alayka bi'a'daika a'da'i din. Like that. There is no such thing that you are Allahumma anta al-wahid al-samad al-fard al-ahad. There is no such thing. That's number one. Number two, there is no passing salutation upon the Prophet ﷺ after the dua of Qunut al-Nawazil. Number three, Qunut al-Nawazil is supposed to be Qunut al-Nawazil. It is not a Qunut which is going to be for 5 minutes waiting for you to finish. It's not right there. And you put in words just like that. Just get on with the point. Someone didn't make it like we call it in Arabic, a jarida, newspaper. No, it's not a newspaper. I don't want to read 6 o'clock news from your dua. What happened to the mujahideen and what happened to them. You just make the dua and that's it. And make the people to the point. The one that they're prolonging is the dua of the qunut of Ramadan. That is not dua. That is not dua. And I was really impressed with the, you could say, the courage. I can't remember the Imam which one. In the Haram. Last Ramadan, on the 27th, his dua was Allahumma hdina fi man hadayt, and it ended up with Tabarakta Rabbana wa Ta'ala. Which Imam I can remember? The Juhani? Yes. Allahu Alam. Al-Uhda ala Rawi. He says it's Al-Juhani. In the 27th of Ramadan. That's Layl al-Qadr. So we got rid of the dua of, regretfully saying, of Sheikh Sudais, which is always a long dua. That's not right dua. It's absolutely wrong. It's a bid'ah. So, and some people even put their hands, even on the camera, they put their hands and they put hands up because they get tired. You know, up and down and up. Sometimes the people sit down and can't even go. And all of it as well, not from the dua. Not all of it. Most of it, okay, not say some of it, let me just be as well just some. Some of it is just word put together to make it sound like what rhyme. Which is not right. That's not from the hadith of the Prophet. And on top of that, which is another point, please, brothers, don't make it with a melody. And don't make it with the ahkam al-Quran. So we're not going to supposed to say, إِنَّهُ لَا يَدِلُّ مَنْ وَلَيْتُ 2 counts for غُنَّة 2 counts. What is that? That's correct. وَعَافِنِي فِي مَا شو هذا؟ إخفاء. No, you can't do that. تولني في من توليت. Not في من توليت. Not right. So no, not the Arabs. But some of the idgham is the Arabs. Like we say, when we make idgham of the waw, this is, we don't say min wara, we say min wara. But in the Quran we say min wara, 2 counts. So the normal speech is min wara. So some of the idgham comes natural. That's no problem. Okay, so we say Muhammadan Rasulullah. We don't say Muhammadan Rasulullah. That's even how we the tongue. Muhammadan Rasulullah. So this is called idgham kamil, complete, full merging. Right. So the no melody we said, and no prolonging, and no ahkam al-Quran. What else as well? I think I've talked about it during the Ramadan, talking about the bid'ah of this thing. And we have gathered some points here from the scholars. And there is a risala of Sheikh Bakr Abu Zayd, rahmatullah, that he had made regarding this dua. And he talked about the bid'ah. And he's from the Shuyukh of Saudi Arabia. So I said it's very courageous from Sheikh Imam al-Juhani that is to do this dua. Just with that dua. Jazakallahu khairan for reviving the sunnah. Wallahi, it takes a courage. I don't know if we're going to let him to do again or not. Allahu a'lam. Now.
Sheikh, said when the Imam is making dua, the Ma'mum is say Ameen. But in a situation when sometimes there is a long introduction before he starts his dua, glorifying Allah and all that thing. What's the Ma'mum?
Right, okay, let's say, so if there is any supplication where there is no Ameen, Ameen is Allah granted. Not to go even for the long one, let's go for the dua of the Qunut. Allahumma ahdini fi man hadayt. Oh Lord, guide me amongst the ones whom you guide. You say what? Ameen. وعافيني في من عافيت وتولني في من توليت وبارك لي في من طيب واشقني شر ما قضيت. Now, إنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك. You are the one who decrees and no one can decrease upon you. Now the Ameen, it does not fit for your mind. Oh, how can I say Allah granted? Because Allah is talking about Himself. For verily you, O Lord, decree, nobody can decree upon you. You say Ameen. Always stick with the Ameen. We don't have anything apart from the Ameen. But what happened to people, as I said to you, people that never stop making bid'ah. إِنَّكَ تَقْضِي وَلَا يُقْضَى عَلَيْكَ. What do they say? No. No. Arabic here, well, أشهد. أشهد. I testify. They say أشهد. إِنَّكَ تَقْضِي. Somebody said it and everybody follows. Yeah, good. أشهد means I testify. So you decree and no one can decree when أشهد. وإنه لا يذل من وليت أشهد ولا يعز من عاديت أشهد تبارك ربنا وتعالى أشهد لا منجى منك إليك أشهد. Where did he get it from? And then people said, oh yeah, أشهد, good word. This is a new bid'ah for me. Where is it? Here? Here because they don't understand the Arabic. This is subhanallah. But the Arabs understand Arabic and أشهد. Subhanallah doesn't work with إنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك. No, subhanallah doesn't fit. But Ashhad, huh?
And he praises Allah in the dua, they say subhanallah.
Yeah. Listen, because I don't understand the Arabic. But if you understand the Arabic, that you are testifying that you are, yes, you will not, for example, humiliate the one whom you have given power. You testify. But the one, Ya Allah, Ya Rabbi, hallelujah, I don't know what they say. These people, they add whatever they want to add. And I'm just saying this is a bid'ah which is common.
Some people, they understand, but they know because
And they be quiet.
It's not a dua, he doesn't start with Allahumma, so he has to say something, subhanallah, or remain silent.
Yeah, doesn't matter. I'm just saying all of that is not right. Just say, you could say Ameen, Ameen to everything. And the ta'meen of yours is not like the ta'meen of the Fatiha. Because the ta'meen of the Fatiha يَرْفَعُ بِهَا صَوْتَهُ. And it's that the masjid will be what? Shaking because of the Ameen. This is not like the Ameen of the Fatiha. This is Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. Now, Ameen, that's different. Right. Okay. Jazakumullahu khair. Fadal. Oh, uncle. Any questions?
I'm thinking, you asked a question about something which I thought you were, that over
Okay.
I make mistakes sometimes. I was praying in one masjid today and I was reading two sunnah.
So the uncle is saying, I want to convey to the sisters, that he was praying in one of the masjid and he was praying these two sunnah.
And I prayed one unit of the two sunnah and somebody called Imam and I went and enjoyed the congregation.
So when he was in the first rak'ah of the sunnah, or the second rak'ah, it doesn't matter, it was in the first rak'ah, and the iqamah was called, so he joined the prayer, rightly so.
Afterwards, should I continue the two sunnah by doing another unit?
No,
What do I do?
nothing.
Nothing.
That's it, you two sunnah, you want to do some sunnah.
But I want to do the sunnah, okay, that's the 12 sunnah.
Okay, no problem, uncle. For example, that if you have, you're talking about which salah? Dhuhr? Dhuhr, right. Uncle, the sunnah of dhuhr is, the ratiba is maximum 4 before and 4 after.
Yes.
That's the maximum. So if you had time to do the 4 before, if you didn't have the time, you could do them after. But if you didn't have the time and you deliberately pushed it to the last moment, and you did 2, couldn't do the other 2, then you lost the 2. You can't do them after. But if you did not have the time because of there's no gap between the Dhuhr Adhan and the prayer of the Jama'ah, for example, then we will say to you, you could continue, you could make them after the prayer, inshallah. Any other question, Uncle? Further. Third rak'ah and the 4th rak'ah. Raise up the hands. Ma'at takbir. Okay, after going from the 2nd to the 3rd, you're talking. So some people would see them that he would make his hands up when he is up, fully up. So he is going to say Allahu Akbar, okay, on the top. And that's not right. Because we said Allahu Akbar is to be triggered just before or with, but not what? After. So always, Sami Allahu liman hamid, be triggered before you lift up your head, but not after. So you could Sami Allahu liman hamid, you are with it until, you can't raise up your hand and say Sami Allahu liman hamida, and Allahu Akbar. You cannot say after you finish, for example, go to the sujood and say Allahu Akbar while you are in the sujood. You have to say Allahu Akbar before or while you are going, but not while you are inside the sajda. Same thing here, when you say Allahu Akbar to get up to the 3rd rak'ah, you're going to say Allahu Akbar where? When you are down. So if you say while I'm down, then the raising of the hand is linked to it. So you can do it after. After is to be not well after, just after. So where is it going to be? Down. If you're going to do Allahu Akbar at the bottom without raising of the hand, and you raise up the hand when you are up, that raising of the hand, what for? What is it for? Linked to what? You're not going to make another takbir for. You can't make takbir up. So the takbir to be done. So the right opinion, the correct opinion, is that to do it when you are at the bottom. There's a hadith which says that the Prophet ﷺ used to do the takbirah after the 2nd to the 3rd, like he made it in the 1st rak'ah. That's the confusion, maybe. Like in the 1st rak'ah, it doesn't mean in the 1st rak'ah means like in the takbirah al-ihram when he's upright. It means before, after, or with. So the takbirah is always with the hand, before or after or with. So raising up the hands when you are what? Down. Not when you are up, because it's linked to the takbir. And when do you say the takbir? When you are down. You don't say takbir when you get up all the way before you start the Fatiha, you say Allahu Akbar. No, Allahu Akbar down. So whether you are raising up the hands before, that's Allahu Akbar, but after you sit, you have to sit, isn't it? You are in the 2nd rak'ah, you are in the tashahhud position. So you finish now, tahiyyat, finish salat al-rahimeen, you finish your dua, you're going to say now Allahu Akbar before you get up, isn't it? You say Allahu Akbar, and then you raise up your hands. You can't say Allahu Akbar, and then you get up, and then you raise up your hands up there. You can't get up and finish your getting up and say Allahu Akbar up there. It has to be before or with that movement of yours, not after you finish the movement. Does that answer this question? Allahu Akbar is not right. Because Allahu Akbar, you are questioning. You're questioning. Is Allah great? Come on. Don't say Allahu Akbar. It sounds like Allahu Akbar. Don't do that. You are actually doing Allahu Akbar totally wrong. And it means totally wrong. Don't say Allahu Akbar until you get up there. Absolutely no scholar would say that. Well, people who have not knowledge, they will say that. No. Fadal.
Bearing in mind the conditions of bid'ah, the Prophet's mode of dressing his special likeness to his footwear and wearing the topi. So if we were to
What's that to do with the bid'ah? I can't understand the question of the bid'ah.
If it's, for example, he did not eat that desert lizard. So if one were to...
Dab.
Oh, yeah. So if one were to dislike because the Prophet disliked it, is it meritorious for him?
To dislike the dab?
Yeah.
So Khalid Walid, when he ate the dab in front of him,
Exactly.
so what does that mean?
That's why I'm asking whether we are confusing with the bid'ah when we are...
No, the bid'ah you have to understand no confusion. The bid'ah, you have to understand the definition of the bid'ah. Okay? The bid'ah is something from the worship that you're doing it in order to match something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained or had done or had recommended. He made Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala something and we told you to do something which is recommended, or it's to be something which is obligatory. You're trying to do something to match it. And it has no support from the Book of Allah or the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or the action of the companions. So this bid'ah can categorize, for example, shirk, bid'ah of shirk. Like for example, those who make tawaf around the grave is a bid'ah, but it's shirk. And it could be a good bid'ah, which is a bid'ah less than a shirk, but a bid'ah which is haram. Those, for example, they make the bid'ah of the celebration of the birth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is totally prohibited to make that because the Prophet of Allah did not do it. And those people who are doing the celebration, even though they love the Prophet of Allah, but they're making this ibadah which hasn't been approved by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or his companions. Or it could be a bid'ah which is something to be disliked. It is not up to the haram, but it will lead to the haram. From those bid'ah, you could say that the people, when they do their adhkar in jama'ah, they do it in jama'ah, subhanallah, 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 that may lead as well to the shaking of the head and all of that. This is bid'ah. But kullu bid'atin dalalah, whether it is shirk, whether it is disliked, it is a misguidance. What you're asking about is eating the dab. This has nothing to do with religion. It's to do with sunan al-'ada, to do with the dunya matters. Prophet of Allah never had eaten on top of a table. So somebody had eaten on the table as a bid'ah? No, yeah. Prophet of Allah did not have glasses. I shouldn't have it, brother. I had to walk blind. Why? Because the Prophet of Allah did not have glasses. A person who can't put a doorbell. Why? Because the Prophet did not have a doorbell. It's a bid'ah. That's nothing to do with that. It's a dunya. The dunya, you're open for it. You could eat dab, you don't have to eat dab, but you can't eat pig or swine because haram. You could eat on top of the table, you could eat. Have you ever seen the Prophet of Allah? Have you heard the Prophet of Allah eating with a spoon? Have you ever? I've seen my Shaykh Al-Albani all the time eating with a spoon. Spoon. No problem. So eating with a spoon is to do with the dunya. Prophet of Allah, he didn't have a spoon at that time. Maybe if he had a spoon, he would have used it. No, no. Because he used to eat with the 3 fingers. I can't be eating with the 3 fingers. I'm not really mastering that thing. Because I drop lots of food, which is not right or right. So I eat with a spoon. But if you ask, mashallah, brothers from the Somali, mashallah, they're very good. Because you got used to it. Some of the, as well, where I come from, they eat with the hand, but they don't eat with the 3, they eat with the 5. It's not from the 5 hands, 5 themselves. 5, it's with the 3. But I'm just saying, this is dunya. So don't confuse yourself with the dunya matters. That's what the Prophet eating the dab, or eating, he loves, for example, the lamb shoulder. If we eat the leg of the lamb, that means what? We're making bid'ah. No, yeah. He used to love the lamb shoulder. So if you don't like the lamb shoulder, it's up to you. Oh, brother, you are on a bid'ah. Why? Because you hate the lamb shoulder. No, yeah, I don't like the lamb. I don't like to eat the meat, all of it. I like to eat chicken, no problem. But if you say, no, I am vegetarian. Why are you a vegetarian, brother? Is it because it causes you illness? You're not eating. Vegetarian means what? Or vegans. Oh, worse. Even eating the chicken egg, you don't eat it. That's religion. You're taking a religion. If it's you, for example, because of your cancer, doctor said you don't eat meat. I understand that, but to say I'm vegetarian, it's not right. No.
But my concern is
said to you,
So is it meritorious if I wear the thobe as he preferred
oh
wearing
yeah,
white?
البس ما شئت وكل ما شئت. Prophet said, eat what you like and wear what you like. But there are conditions. Those conditions from number of hadith. So when he says wear what you like, can you put, for example, shorts and show your awrah? Can you wear, for example, like just an underwear and show everything? Can you can't? So there's conditions. So the Prophet of Allah used to put, for example, izar, and a thobe on top of it. Now we're putting this thobe. It's different. The thobe is not the Prophet's thobe. But it's baggy, mashallah. But if you put baggy trousers, nobody says you haram. But make sure that you've got enough shirt to cover your back when you make prostration. That's the whole issue. So no problem. So your jacket, because the Prophet had jacket, leather jacket like that. No problem. Could have leather jacket, this one. So let's just go to another question. Fadal.
Yes, you come in the morning, Salat prayer,
Now.
and you don't have enough time to pray Salat, 2 rak'ah before Salat Subah, and Tahiyyat al-Masjid. Can you combine them, or which one do you pray first? If you don't have enough time to pray, what, you 2 by 2, and then Salat Subah starts.
So you come into the masjid,
Yes.
and the Fajr prayer is about to be called for, which is Iqamah.
Yeah.
And you have time to do 2 rak'ah?
You have only time to do 2 rak'ah. Which
2
one?
rak'ah. So which one of the what?
The Tahiyyat al-Masjid, or rak'atayn before.
Is it Tahiyyat al-Masjid or the rak'atayn of the Sunnah al-Fajr? Can anybody answer this question from this Fadal? Combine, but what is you combine what with what? So you pray with the intention of Tahiyyat al-Masjid, you pray with Sunnah al-Fajr, which one? No, you don't understand. Which one is the origin and which one you add as an intention? It's very important to understand that. Start with the one which is more important. Sunnatul Fajr is the one which is unique. And you add Tahiyyat al-Masjid. Always like that. Sunnatul Fajr, then Tahiyyat al-Masjid. So if you had, I'll tell you what, you could add this one more. You made wudu? Yes. So you could, this is my brains, Sunnatul Fajr, I'm adding the intention of Tahiyyat al-Masjid and 2 Sunnah wudu. Yeah, Allah is not really saying to you, you are greedy. You could do as many as you want, huh? For 2 rak'ah. But you're going to get not the reward of 2 rak'ah, you're going to get the reward of the intention of 2 rak'ah. You understand that, huh? So in your 2 sunnah, I'm going to get my 2 intention for 2 Tahiyyat al-Masjid and 2 Sunnah al-Wudu. That's the best thing. But if you have time, do them individually. Do them what? Individually. If you have time. You start with Tahiyyat al-Masjid, you start then Sunnah al-Wudu, then you make 2 Sunnah al-Fajr. Now.
Can you just explain how you correct yourself if you missed 1 rak'ah in Jama'ah? So you finished with the Imam, but you forgot and you missed 1 rak'ah. Do you have
So a person joined the Imam and he did not join him from the beginning and he made salutation wrongly with the Imam. What should he do? He gets up and he fulfill and do what is missed, whether it's 1 or 2. Then after he had finished salutation, then he made 2 prostration and another salutation. But if he did that prostration before, which is the 2 sajda, the salutation is no problem. Fadal.
It's almost the same as I was going to ask about sujood the-sahw. If you make mistake during the salah, so you added something, so we know you do sujood the-sahw after the salah. If you added something.
I think I have addressed this issue, yes? Before and after? Yes? Yes?
Yeah,
Because I confused myself. Which masjid I've talked about it.
Only one scenario is sujood the-sahw, when you're practicing it, instead of giving salam, you put tashahhud again.
No.
I'm saying it did happen.
Yeah. No. If you made the 2 sajda after the salutation, there is no tashahhud again.
We know this, but if it did take place, you made tashahhud mistakenly.
The 2 sajdas, I mean, for example, he done 2 sajda sahw. He has now, after the 2 sajda, he had made tashahhud. Is that mistakenly why? Because he forgot?
Yes, forgot.
He did that, forgot? So, so he made 2 sajda, and then he made 2 shahad, forgot. Again, keep repeating it.
That's what I'm saying.
No, I would say that if he had made 2 sajda sahu and he made a mistake after that, there is no 2 sajda sahu. Khalas, it's finished.
Even if you added the tashahhud in this thing.
What's that? If you have made after the salutation, you took sajda sahu and you made a mistake, you forgot to shahwat, there is no time sajda sahu. Khalas, that's it. The sujood sahu is only once. We don't make sujood sahu for sahu. تفضل حضر أحمد
Sheikh, is it from the Sunnah after reciting Quran to say Subhanallah wa bihamdihi ashhadu an la ilaha illa
No, it is not from the Sunnah after you recite the Quran to say that. تفضل.
Regarding going from the
By the way, the question for the sister is not from the Sunnah to say the dua of Kafarat al-Majlis. No.
standing up for the third rak'ah, it says sometimes you raise your hands. So that means sometimes you don't raise it.
Yes, standing up from the third rak'ah, it is sometimes you raise them and sometimes you don't raise them. But it is more emphasized than between the 2 sajda. It's more emphasized between going from the third to the fourth. Okay?
Is that for the second to the third?
I said to you, but after the tashahhud, you say it, do it sometime. We remember, we read it, and I said, but it's not, it is more emphasized, that one, than the one between the 2 sajda. More emphasized between the third and the fourth. In the third and the fourth, we rarely have read the hadith of Prophet of Allah where the Prophet will make it, raising up the hands from the third to the fourth. But from the tashahhud, that is 2, the third rak'ah, we've seen lots of hadith talks about it. And that is why the Shaykh Al-Albani was hesitant to say it is always or not. But we said all the time that the 3 that you don't miss, number 1, number 2, coming to the ruku', number 3, up from the ruku'. Number 4, very most likely, is the one which is after the what? The second to the third. And let's just now emphasize what I've said in the talkhis, which is the last thing that the Shaykh Al-Albani had done, rahmatullahi alayh. He had said in the talkhis the following. He had said that is make takbir from the second to the third, and he would raise up his hand sometimes. Okay? Now this is his last fatwa. Fadl.
You picking up for rak'ah.
When you're getting up for the rak'ah.
Actually, you have sometimes people like, will that be considered as something sometimes?
No. Ajin is not to start doing like this to the floor. No, you take the position, meaning like for the sisters who are listening, not to start making ajin, and the women are very good at this. Okay? To start making a dough. No. It is the shape of the making of the dough, which is the fist. So the fist on the ground. So it's not like, I'm going to do like this, start doing it on the floor. That's a good question actually.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
Yeah.
don't make the fist itself.
Yeah. No, this is not that. Well, the ajin is for the fist because there is a hadith which supports this ajin by the fist. That's what we said. And I have seen our Shaykh Rahmatullahi doing it, and that's a practical way of doing it.
possible as well to palm.
The palm is not for the ajin. So if you're doing the palm, it is not even as well, they could say, practical. You might snap your wrist. If you're a heavy person.
There is no hadith to say Prophet sometimes
No, he would fist all the time.
no palm.
No palms. But the palm, as I said as well, sometimes it is with heavy person, you might snap the wrist. That's why the push with the fist is much more, you could say, safer. Now, Jazakumullah khairan. Any other question? Last. Subhanakallah bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.